Hi everyone. The European leaders are at it again on their drive towards more war and their fanatical obsession with driving us towards more militarism in the European Union. Yesterday, we saw the meeting of the European leaders along with the head of NATO in the plush surroundings of the Elysee Palace in Paris at the behest of Emmanuel Macron, the President of France, and Keir Starmer, Britain's Prime Minister. Of course, Keir Starmer has been trying to build up this coalition of the willing and talking about a just and durable and lasting peace. But it could be nothing of the sort because comments that came from that yesterday, which went very much unremarked by the media, are very revealing. Because yesterday, Micheál Martin attended this event as one of the European 27 leaders. Now, of course, he was photographed as part of this coalition of the willing. Under Ursula von der Leyen said that the coalition of the willing is growing, it's getting stronger and more determined as they're driving us towards more militarism in the European Union and going to cut public spending and delve into people's bank accounts to profit the military industrial complex from the killing war machine. It should be really called the coalition of the killing. But Micheál Martin, where was the referendum asked on this, Micheál Martin? Or when was it put to the people about your drive towards more war in the European Union? But of course, Micheál Martin claims he wants to protect the single market. And yesterday, Micheál Martin also spoke about defending Ukraine's territorial integrity, independence, and wait for it, sovereignty. Micheál Martin, who said sovereignty was a backward looking idea. Of course, when it suits the narrative, he's okay to stand and start talking about sovereignty when it's absolutely nothing of the sort. It is a US proxy war in the Ukraine, and we've known that for years and years in terms of NATO expansionism and many more issues as well, which are going on talked about by the mainstream media in Europe and in particular here in Ireland. Because yesterday, Mark Rutte, who is the guy who walked away from the Netherlands because he wasn't going to get re-elected and there was a no confidence motion in him, he moved it up into a position of head of NATO. Surprise, surprise. He was a key architect of driving us towards more war across Europe, and himself said yesterday that there will be no normal relations in Europe for the next number of decades until a post-Putin era. Many, many decades, he said, and he said the threat is still there. Now, this is part of the fear-mongering that's going up and the rhetoric that's being echoed by the mainstream establishment. Rather than looking for diplomatic solutions and looking for real peace, they're actually driving towards more war at the behest of the United States, because of course Pete Hegseth said a number of weeks ago that the European Union need to step up and move towards more militarism. And it's interesting when you look in terms of the sanctions packages and the taxes as well, tariffs on goods that are being sent to across the United States, and that's really an issue that's impacting everybody across Europe and particularly here in Ireland. But what's important to note, in the last few weeks we've seen the tariffs going in on steel and aluminium in particular. So again, that has issues in terms of the militarisation industrial complex essentially of the European Union. They'd be looking in the first instance to profit the war machines of Raytheon, Lockheed and all these companies a lot that are based across in the United States, and of course will profit them no end while the Americans wash their hands of what's going on in Europe. Of course, it is fundamentally still their proxy war, but they're just passing the baton on to the European Union to pick up the slack. And at the same time, they're talking about putting tariffs on cars, 25% tariffs going on cars that are going to be imported into the United States. And this, again, we've seen the drive towards moving companies, for instance, which have been deindustrialized because of the mysterious Nord Stream explosion and the energy crisis across Europe. Companies like Volkswagen that are now diversifying and moving towards more militarism and in terms of military output. And that ties into what Rutte said yesterday about the fact that it's a war economy, Russia, Iran. He said that they can produce in 3 months what Europe can only produce in 12 months. Well, now's the best way to move towards the war machine and create jobs for this killing machine of the brutality of war. But it's not only that, like a lot of other issues are happening across the spectrum as well in terms of the soft power being used, but in particular by members of the political classes. Yesterday I saw an absolutely just farcical video that was released by the European Commissioner, Maja Habib, who is the European Commissioner for Equality, Preparedness and Crisis Prevention. So here we go. We have preparedness and crisis prevention. Is this part of the soft power to get people in the mindset for war? And it's interesting because she said that all of her emergency bag entails, and she did a video, and it was absolutely quite farcical to look at it. And she said she would have her glasses, she would have her documents in a waterproof paper, or a case or folder, and she also said that she would have a flashlight, matches, and water, and food is very important as well, and something to eat, and some cash. Really, this is part of the softening approach to prepare people essentially for war. Now, in the last number of days, RTE themselves have done a little piece on the preparedness for war. Though we remember a number of years ago, was it the iodine tablets, I think, were the famous push in terms of a possible nuclear explosion or attack on Ireland. I think that was a Fianna Fáil TD in Wicklow that was pushing for those, Dick Brady I think it was, or Dick Roach rather, sorry, that was pushing those iodine tablets at the time as well. But again, it's more public money, more waste, and more to ratchet up the propaganda. Now across France they're even talking about the same stuff. They're actually pushing towards a survival manual. This release document to say how you can get prepared in your local communities, like join up your local defence unit and perhaps move towards some sort of reserve force as well. Now we've seen in Ireland the attack on the defence forces in terms of the disastrous pay and conditions, and for many members of the defence forces for years and years. We've seen a recruitment crisis, in particular with our naval service also as well, and lack of actually any push or investment in supporting our defence forces. But what's important with this is that this is going to be moving towards this sort of dad's army creation of some sort of local defence force. And of course, which is absolutely just ludicrous. Last week, Pedro Sanchez said the biggest threat wasn't Russia coming across the Pyrenees, and he wasn't willing to sell this to the people of Spain, and that's why they changed the name perhaps from the Rearm 2030 to Readiness 2030. And of course, people like von der Leyen and the globalists are intent on dragging us towards more war, and intent on cutting public services around this issue as well, and affecting ordinary people most of all. And people need to wise up to what's going on in the European Union. It's more and more centralised power. Nobody voted for von der Leyen. Nobody voted for Mark Rutte, who was faced a vote of no confidence in the Netherlands himself as well. In particular, the corruption, whole issues that face people like von der Leyen, for instance, with the Pfizer contracts, with many more contracts as well, that she negotiated on at the behest of the European Union for the citizens of Europe. And of course, they're coming out with their propaganda to say so many people in Europe support the European Union. But in fact, we know that Emily O'Reilly, the former ombudsman who recently resigned, said that the European Commission was being run like a powerful consigliere. So equating it to the mafia. And this is essentially how it's come. It's become a big power grab for the globalists rather than the interests of ordinary people. So much for peace, so much for prosperity. It's dragging us towards more war, and Ireland should have no hand or act or part in this, and they should be standing up for Irish sovereignty, Irish independence and Irish neutrality, rather than dragging us towards more militarism and dragging us to protect the so-called market, the market that has failed so many people across society, the neoliberal policies that have failed so many people right across Irish society, with record homelessness, record house prices, record evictions, record rents, record amount of people on hospital waiting lists, record amount of people who are dying because of fuel poverty, and more people being forced into poverty and inequality because of these issues, with the cost of living disaster that funnels more money upwards. So please support my videos, please share them. Thanks for everybody who continues to share them. Please comment as well. Share them into groups, WhatsApp groups and so forth as well. And also please press subscribe to my YouTube channel. So from Dublin, Slán, and thanks so much for all the support with my videos. Take care. Bye bye.